Hello, dear listeners. I'm your host, Genevieve Hopkins, and welcome to episode 11 of the Wheel and Cross podcast. Today marks the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox in the southern hemisphere. In my region of Australia, the local Ngunnawal people call this time of year Djambari, early spring, a time when the native sarsparilla vine, Hardenbergia violacea, bursts into purple flowers, and the silver wattles, Acacia dealbata, explode with bright yellow blossoms. The August winds howl through the valleys, and the days are usually crisp and sunny, though still cold. This is also the time of year when magpies start nesting, and the dreaded swooping season begins. We'll learn more about the magpies and the swooping season in a future episode. In the meantime, let's explore the history and traditions that mark the first stirrings of spring: Imbolc, Brigid's Day, and Candlemas. This podcast is free, but if you like my work and would like to support me so that I can continue doing it, please consider a paid subscription. If that is not possible and you enjoy this podcast, I would really appreciate your reviews on any of the podcasting platforms you use. Feel free to share this podcast and leave comments on the podcast page. Welcome to episode 11 of the Wheel and Cross podcast: Djambari, Imbolc, Brigid's Day, and Candlemas. As always, I would like to acknowledge the custodians of these lands on which I work and live in Australia's capital region, the lands of the Ngunnawal and Djambari people, and I pay my deep respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to all First Nations across Australia. Imbolc falls on the 1st of February in the Northern Hemisphere, and today on the 1st of August in the Southern Hemisphere. It is an ancient Celtic festival connected to fertility, the lambing season, the quickening, and the first stirrings of spring. The word Imbolc is thought to come from the Old Irish Imbolc, meaning in the belly, referring to pregnant ewes. It could also be derived from the Old English word oimach, meaning ewe's milk. Sheep begin lambing at this time of year, and ewe's milk was an important source of nourishment for people in the pre-industrial era, as winter stores ran out and the New Year harvests had not yet been planted. The Celtic goddess Brigid, also called Brigid or Brid, was honoured during this time. She was associated with fire, poetry, learning, healing, water, protection, blacksmithing, livestock, and dairy production. Her celebrations and traditions were incorporated into the story and feast day of the Christian Saint Brigid, one of three and the only female patron saint of Ireland, the others being Saint Patrick and Saint Columba. Saint Brigid is credited with founding many monasteries and abbeys throughout Ireland, Wales and Scotland, and she is particularly associated with the monastery at Kildare in Ireland, which she is said to have founded in 480 AD, over the site of a pagan shrine to the Celtic goddess Brigid. This ancient shrine was situated on the ridge of Drumclid, under an oak tree, and was served by young women who tended an eternal flame. The name Kildare comes from the ancient Irish term Kildara, meaning Church of Oak. The nuns of Kildare, known as the Order of the Sisters of Brigid, or the Brigidine sisters, took over tending and guarding the eternal flame for centuries, until, according to some stories, the flame and the Brigidine order were snuffed out by Cromwell's armies in the 16th century. The Brigidine order was re-established on the 1st of February 1807, and almost 200 years later in 1993, the Brigidine sisters relit the eternal flame and still tend it to this day. The flame continues to burn at the Brigidine Spirituality Centre, Solus Brigid, located halfway between St. Brigid's Cathedral, also known as Kildare Cathedral, and St. Brigid's Well, on the outskirts of Kildare. Throughout Ireland and other Celtic nations, wells are considered sacred. Many in Ireland in particular are associated with Brigid or St. Brigid. These sacred wells were believed to have healing properties, and people often made pilgrimages to them to wash their wounds or cleanse their bodies with the healing waters. Some pilgrims dipped a piece of rag called a clootie into the water and tied it to a nearby tree, usually a whitethorn or ash tree. It was believed that as these clooties rotted away, so would a person's illness or troubles. Visiting wells, cleansing the body with its healing waters, and tying clooties for oneself or a loved one is a particularly important custom on St. Brigid's Day, or Imbolc. There is a long-standing tradition, particularly in Ireland, of making Brigid's crosses on the eve of St. Brigid's Day, January 31 in the Northern Hemisphere and July 31 in the Southern Hemisphere. These crosses are typically fashioned from rushes and woven into a four-armed equilateral design, although variations with 3 arms and diamond shapes also exist. The cross shapes are particularly significant as they are hung above doors, windows and stables, serving as a warm welcome to Brigid, while protecting against fire, lightning, illness and malevolent spirits. These crosses are usually left in place until St. Brigid's Day the following year. Another Brigid's Day custom from Ireland, Scotland, Wales and the Isle of Man was a symbolic welcoming of Brigid into the house with various rituals, often involving a female family member holding rushes or hay, circling the house or kneeling at the threshold 3 times, and calling out a welcome to Brigid each time. Once inside, a bed and Brigid's cross would be made for her from the rushes. Different regions recited different verses. From the Isle of Man, Breedy, Breedy, come to my house tonight. Open the door for Breedy and let Breedy come in. From County Donegal in Ireland, go on your knees, open your eyes and let in St. Brigid, said 3 times while kneeling at the front step, holding rushes. The family inside responds with, she's welcome. From the Hebrides in Scotland, Breed, Breed, come in, thy bed is ready. In other regions, people would leave strips of cloth or old clothes outside of their houses on St. Brigid's Eve before going to bed, and then bring them back inside in the morning. Brigid, or St. Brigid, was believed to bless these clooties with the powers of healing and protection. On Brigid's Day, in some parts of Ireland and Scotland, a doll known as the Bridiog, or Little Brigid in Irish, or Biddy in English, was made from rushes or reeds and decorated with flowers, shells and bits of cloth. The Bridiog was paraded around the community by young unwed women and girls, wearing white with unbound hair and singing hymns. In other parts of Ireland, a girl played the role of Brigid, wearing a crown and carrying a shield and cross made from rushes. This is Biddy dressed in white. Give her a penny on this dark night. She is deaf and she is dumb. For God's sake, give her some. an Irish chant for Biddy's Day processions. The procession went from house to house, receiving food or more decorations for the Brigid, after which they feasted together in one of the houses. The Brigid, or girl, was set or sat in a place of honour, and was then ritually put to bed with traditional lullabies. After this, young men would be allowed to enter by humbly asking for permission and acknowledging the Brigid before joining the girls in dancing and celebration. Candlemas is celebrated the next day, February 2, by many Christian denominations, including Eastern Orthodox, Roman Catholics, and mainline Protestants, Lutherans, Anglicans, and Methodists. Candlemas is also known as the Feast of the Presentation of Jesus Christ, or Feast of the Purification of the Blessed Mary, commemorating the presentation of Jesus and the ritual purification of his mother Mary at the Jewish Holy Temple in Jerusalem. Candlemas falls on the 40th day after Christmas, and was considered by Christians to conclude the Christmas Epiphany season. In places where the decorations were not taken down on Twelfth Night, Candlemas was the final day to remove them. On this day, Christians took candles to their local church to be blessed before they were used throughout the rest of the year. The farmer's year began on Candlemas. Fields were prepared for the spring sowing, and the servants' year ended. During this time, it was customary to pay servants and farm workers the final instalment of their wages, and employment was renegotiated, with workers either extending their employment or looking for a new job. In France and Belgium, Candlemas was considered the day of crepes, their round shape and golden colour symbolising the solar disk and the return of spring after the cold, dark winter. In Spain and the former Spanish colonies of Latin America, the Canary Islands and the Philippines, Nuestra Señora de la Candelaria, Our Lady of Light, or Our Lady of the Candles, is celebrated by processions and feasts. Some scholars believe that Candlemas replaced the ancient Roman festival of Lupercalia, also called Dies Februatus, Day of the Februa, when long strips of skin called februa were cut from the flayed bodies of sacrificed dogs or wolves, also known as lupus. These februa were used by the Luperci, members of the Brothers of the Wolf cult, to spray blood on people and buildings as they ran through the city, to purify the city, and to promote the health and fertility of its citizens. The general population also performed purification rituals for their own bodies and households, to cleanse themselves after the excesses of Saturnalia, and in preparation for the new year. Candlemas traditions have been kept alive by Christian congregations throughout the world, while Imbolc or Brigid's Day traditions have survived and are being revived across Ireland and the other Celtic nations, from the Biddy's Day festival in County Kerry to the Brigid of Faughart festival in County Louth, the Imbolc International Music Festival in Derry, and the Imbolc Fire Festival in Marsden, West Yorkshire, England. Imbolc, or St. Brigid's Day, as of last year, is now recognised as an annual public holiday in the Republic of Ireland. I like to celebrate Imbolc and spring's quickening by going to a forest or into my orchard, hanging the orange slice decorations from Yuletide in tree branches, and enjoying a picnic with lemon juice and sugar-sprinkled crepes to honour my French heritage, turmeric scones with marmalade jam and homemade butter, fresh orange slices and turmeric tea, to honour the sunny colours of early spring. This year, I'll add a trip to the creek with my children on Imbolc Eve to collect rushes, bring in the biddy, and try my hand at making Brigid's crosses. Next week, we will explore Imbolc or Brigid's Day's association with weather lore and the uniquely North American tradition of Groundhog Day. In the meantime, Benach tena fele bride orabgoler. Happy St. Brigid's Day. May flowers always line your path and sunshine light your day. May songbirds serenade you every step of the way. May a rainbow run beside you in a sky that's always blue. And may happiness fill your heart each day, your whole life through. A traditional Irish blessing for Imbolc. See you next week for episode 12, Spring Weather Divination and Groundhog Day.